Hey guys, so today I'm here with the Borla S-Type catback exhaust system fitting all 2018 and newer 4-door JL Wranglers with the 3.6 liter V6 motor. So if you're looking for a moderately loud and aggressive sounding exhaust system that's also going to gain you a lot of clearance on the trail, then this option by Borla is going to be a really good one to take a look at. So as far as sound goes, I'm going to give this a 3 out of 5 on the loudness meter, with 0 being very quiet and 5 being incredibly loud. Now you are going to be increasing volume over the factory exhaust system with this new system. However, you are going to get a more aggressive and a deeper tone out of this, livening up the sound of your engine. So as far as interior noise goes, you are going to be able to hear this when you are inside your cab area, however, not very much. So you will be able to hear it when you get on the throttle. However, while you're driving around the highway or just cruising around, you won't get any drone or any loud interior cab noise. Now, this is also going to free up restriction, which is going to get you that increase in sound. However, it's also going to increase your performance. Now, when I'm talking about performance, I'm talking about horsepower and torque gains, fuel economy gains, as well as an increase in throttle response. Now, I would keep in mind that those are going to be increases that are going to be in the higher RPM ranges, and as Jeep owners, we don't really spend a lot of time there. So out of this system, I wouldn't expect a lot of performance. However, when you are getting on the highway or you are stepping on the throttle, you may see an increase in throttle response, and when you're cruising around, you may see an increase in your fuel economy. So the big thing about this exhaust system is the fact that this is a high clearance exhaust system. So this is perfect for somebody who is looking for that aggressive sound, that increase in performance, but mainly that extra clearance that they're getting while they're out on the trail. So even if you only take your Jeep out on the trail once in a while and you want that extra insurance that you're not going to have any damage to your factory exhaust system, this is a really good one to take a look at, considering that this is tucked high and tight up onto the frame, and this is going to basically stay out of the way while you're crawling around and increase your departure angles. So this is going to be roughly $500, and in my personal opinion, I think that that's set at a very good price point. So in comparison to some other choices for catbacks on the page, you'll usually see that the more expensive options are going to have a larger muffler on the back instead of a cut-off tailpipe like this, or just a single outlet. So the main reason behind that is just because you've got more going on with the exhaust system, as to where this is pretty simple and to the point, and it's also not going to use as many materials. Now, in my personal opinion, I think that this is a very high quality exhaust system. It's still at a very average price point for a high clearance exhaust system, but you're going to get a little bit more out of this as far as quality goes, as far as fitment goes, in comparison to some of the other high clearance exhaust systems. So you are going to be able to see the quality down to the details in the welds, as well as the hangers, and even just the overall fitment of this exhaust system. So I personally think for $500, Borla is really giving you what you pay for with this system. So install is going to be a 2 out of 3 wrenches on the difficulty meter. However, I would call it a light 2 out of 3. You will be able to get this on with some very basic hand tools. So speaking of the install, let's jump into that now. The tools that I used for my install were an impact wrench, an exhaust hanger removal tool, 3/8" drive ratchet, 13mm ratcheting wrench, a 15mm and 13mm deep socket, 13mm swivel socket, and a 10-inch extension. So the first step to taking off our exhaust system is to remove our axle back, or our muffler. Now, I personally like to take off the hangers instead of removing the muffler from the hangers. I find it a little bit easier. So what you're going to need is a 13mm swivel socket or a 13mm socket, and also a 13mm wrench or ratcheting wrench. So there are 2 bolts holding the hanger on. One is going to be up in the top, and then one is going to be on the side. So I'm going to use a 13mm swivel socket with a 10-inch extension and go over the sway bar so we can access that top bolt. So our next step is to remove the second bolt that's down on the side here. I'm going to use a 13mm ratcheting wrench. You can also just use an open-ended wrench, but I find this one a little bit easier. Now, since the hanger is going to hook around the frame, you can just let it hang there, and then we can do the same thing on the other side. Now for that last bolt, if you put a little bit of pressure on the muffler, you should be able to twist it out by hand. So our next step, there is going to be a clamp on the back of our axle back, and what we're going to do is take a 15mm deep socket and loosen that up. So what we can do at this point, since both of our hangers are disconnected as well as our clamp, is just go ahead and unhook the hangers and wiggle it off. So our next step is to loosen up our clamp on our catback piping. This is going to be right on the left side of your transfer case. Now this should be a 15mm bolt just like our last clamp. However, we have switched that hardware, so I'm going to use a 13mm socket to go ahead and remove that. So now that our clamp is loosened up, what we can do is remove it from our hanger and take out our piping. So what we're going to do is remove our exhaust piping from our hanger here. Now I am going to use a little bit of PB Blaster just to make it easier. And now I also am going to use a hanger removal tool. If you don't have one of these tools, they're very easy to access at a local hardware store or auto parts store, but you could also use the OG method by taking a pry bar and kind of prying on the frame. All right, so once that's popped out of place, what we have to do is just wiggle this whole piping out. You might have to push it back a little bit just to clear the subframe. Now at this point, we just have to wiggle out the exhaust system. So before we go ahead and install our new Borla S-Type system, I did want to tell you guys a little bit more about it and what benefits that you're going to see from this in comparison to your factory exhaust system. Now right off the bat, you can tell that this is also a two-piece construction. However, this is going to have one muffler up towards the front in comparison to your factory system that has a large baffled muffler in the back as well as a resonator up at the front, which is going to cut a lot of that exhaust noise. Now with this Borla system, this is going to be the S-Type muffler, which is going to free up a lot of restriction. It's going to be a straight through style muffler, which is going to give you a more aggressive tone and a louder sound out of your 3.6. And this is also going to have straight through style piping to cut out a lot of that restriction. So as you can tell with your factory exhaust system, the over the axle piping off of your muffler is going to be pinched, and that's going to cause a lot of restriction, and with this you're not getting any of that. So you are going to get some better flow, you're going to get some better sound, as well as some increases in horsepower, torque, and even MPG. Now like I said before, that is going to be in the higher RPM range, but you will still be able to notice some out of this exhaust system. Now this is going to be a very high quality exhaust system made of high quality 304 stainless steel materials, and that's going to be a lot better than aluminized steel as well as 409 stainless steel, so it's going to resist rust or corrosion a lot better than those materials, as well as last a very long time. So what I do really like about this exhaust system is that you can tell that it is a premium system. You can tell down to the welds, it has high quality welds and even high quality factory style hangers, which is something that I do really appreciate. So the big thing about this exhaust system is that this is a high clearance exhaust system. So you're creating a lot of room in the back because you are getting rid of this big and bulky muffler that came out of the factory, increasing your departure angles, and you're also moving the muffler all the way to the front, and this back end piping is going to sit high and tight up against the frame, which is going to maximize your departure angles, and it is going to minimize all of that damage that you would see with a large exhaust system like this. So enough about these two side by side, let's go ahead and mount up our new one. So what we're going to do first is transfer over our driver's side exhaust hanger onto our new tailpipe. Now I'm going to use a little bit of PB Blaster just to help it slide off a little bit easier. And then I'm going to take my exhaust hanger removal tool and my hanger removal tool and just slide it right off, and then we can move it to our new exhaust system. So now we're gonna go ahead and install our muffler. I have a pole jack here just to support it while we get the clamp on the other side of our exhaust system. So I took the bolt out of the clamp just to get this to open up a little bit. So now we can take the back half of the piping and send it over our axle, making sure that we have the clamp on the front. And we're also going to send the tailpipe over our sway bar. So you're going to make sure that you slide the exhaust as far as you possibly can onto the muffler piping. So I'm going to start with this frame hanger right in the middle here before our axle. I put a little bit of PB Blaster on there to make sure that this slides in pretty easily. All right, now that's into place. We can go back to our back hanger and then we can tighten everything up. So because our hanger back here is already attached, what we have to do is hook this back into place and then we can reattach the bolts that we took out to begin with. May have to put a little bit of pressure on the exhaust just to get it to sit up in place. We can thread everything in. So I'm going to use that same 13mm swivel socket, and I'm still going to use that extension, but I'm going to use that for both of the bolts. And we can do the same thing for the top bolt, go over the sway bar. So our next step is to tighten up our middle clamp. You want to make sure that it's sitting over these notches here, over both pieces of the piping. I'm going to use a 15mm deep socket to go ahead and tighten that up. All right, then we can head up to our front clamp. So then making sure that this clamp is sitting over both pieces of the piping as well, we're going to take a 13mm socket and tighten that up. So that's going to wrap it up for my review and install. Make sure you like and subscribe, and for more videos and products like this, always keep it right here at ExtremeTerrain.com.